Morning.
Good morning. You know how to pack a room, David.
Wow.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Eisen. I'm the host at CNBC, and it is my honor and privilege to speak to David Beckham today, who is the winner of the Crystal Awards. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Here
much.
at the World Economic Forum. This is his first Davos, so he's finding it a lot of fun. We know you had the ceremony yesterday. Before we get going, though, we do have a quick video that was prepared in your honor to help set the stage. Let's take a look.
This is the sort of work I want to do. This is what I want to be involved in.
I look young. When I joined UNICEF as a goodwill ambassador in 2005, I could never have imagined the journey I would take with this incredible organisation. When visiting countries all over the world, I've seen firsthand how UNICEF is making a real difference in children's lives and in their communities. I've listened to young people talk about the challenges they face and their dreams for the future. Children have the power of hope, to be free from violence, to receive a good education, for girls to be treated as equals alongside boys. Every child has the right to dream, and with the right support and opportunities, children can be empowered to shape their own lives. A lot has changed in the past 20 years, but one thing stays true. Every child should have the power to dream. So now, and 20 years from now, we must all do what we can to help children fulfill their dreams.
I first met David with his business partner and best friend, Jamie Salter, who is here at Authentic Brands. And we'll talk about David Beckham, the businessman, David Beckham, the family man. But we're here really to talk about David Beckham, the philanthropist. And you've really showed us that through the power of sport, you can do good. This UNICEF relationship goes back a long time. How did you get involved with them?
Well, it does. Firstly, good morning, everyone. I know it's an early morning, and I'm sure a few of you had a late night last night, so thank you for at least being here. I'll do my best to keep you all awake. But, you know, my relationship with UNICEF is the most important work that I do. It's the work that I enjoy most, even though I enjoy all of my work that I do. I never consider it work because it's something that inspires me every single trip that I go on, every child that I meet. But it started a long time ago. When I was actually 17 years old with Manchester United, I was on tour in Thailand, and I was asked to go to a women's centre to see the work that UNICEF do. And it was incredible. And I knew then, even at 17 years old, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be part of. So when I got the call from Kofi Annan to be Goodwill Ambassador, you know, it was quite an emotional moment, because for myself as a footballer from the East End of London, to be able to be part of an organisation like UNICEF that was helping and is helping and always helps young children around the world, you know, I was very privileged with that. So it's been long-standing. I've seen and met some incredible children over that time. But you know, the issues and situations continue every single day, and I will continue to fight for children's rights until I can fight no more.
Well, I think we saw in the video, you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk, you travel, you get out there. What are some of the most memorable experiences for you?
You know, every trip that I go on is a memorable experience. Good, bad. Every child that I meet has a different situation and a different worry and different dreams and different hopes. You know, the first time that I sat down with UNICEF, I said, okay, take me to a place that is the worst and needs the biggest help. And the first trip that we went on was Sierra Leone, and it was just after the conflict, and that was a long time ago. And I met some incredible children, and I always tell the story that whenever I meet these children, you know, obviously I'm very lucky to have 4 amazing children, these children are in completely different situations to what my children are and to other children around Europe that I've met and around the world that I've met, but they have the same smile. They have the same smiles. Whatever situations they're in, their smiles are the same with these kids. So there's so many different situations that I've been in, that I've seen. You know, I visited so many different places, like I said, Thailand, Nepal, China, and recently India, which India really opened my eyes because these young people were championing for change. And I went to this women's centre that these girls were incredible, talented, driven, and it was inspiring.
What about the Seven Fund? How did that come to be? What is that?
Well, we came up with the Seven Fund because, you know, over my time with UNICEF, we've seen an incredible amount of change. And I've seen personally, you know, there were certain things that we had to really focus on. You know, education, you know, forced early child marriage, immunisation. So all of these things that we really needed to focus on, and that's why we set up the Seven Fund. So we've been able to help millions of children over that time. It's something that we've been very proud of. But during that time, I also noticed how girls were getting left behind. And that is one thing, obviously having a daughter myself and seeing how girls get left behind and they don't have, you know, equal access to education and to healthcare, and they are forced into early marriage, which then takes them out of their education. So I wanted to focus the next few years on that, and that's what I'm focusing, you know, on this year. Teenage girls, empowering them, you know, to live to their full potential. They should have the right and the same access as the boys do. You know, I'm not saying that I'm stepping away from helping the boys, but my main focus is the girls, because when you empower a young girl, you know, it uplifts them, it uplifts their family, it uplifts their communities, and that's good for everybody, that's good for the world, and that's one thing that we're focused on.
So how much time, you've got a lot going on, so how much time do you spend with UNICEF and on the trips and making sure that these funds go to the right places?
Well, you know, it's a daily thing, in all honesty. You know, within the office, it's a daily thing. We're always communicating with UNICEF. We're always communicating with the team that we have. I also always try to do at least 1-2 trips a year, and they're always major trips, and they're always shining a light. And I think that's the one thing that I can do, you know, is shine a light on these situations. And that's one thing that my platform gives. You know, throughout my career, I've been successful on the field, I've been successful with business, but what gives me the platform to help organisations like UNICEF is the fact that I've been successful on the field, and that's what I want to do with the platform that I have.
They probably go nuts when you come visit.
Well, and that's the amazing thing. You know, I step into these communities and these villages that don't have TV, that don't have radio, and you walk out onto, you know, a soccer field, a football field with a ball, and these kids light up, you know, whether they know me or not. And most of the time they do know me purely because
everybody knows
of
you?
Well, not just that. But, you know, whether it's they've heard the name Beckham on the radio, you know, or whether they've seen their father wearing an old Manchester United shirt or an old England shirt, you know, it is great to have that. And it is great to be able to use that for good. Speaking
of using it for good, you also participate in the King's Fund. Is that something more recent? What's your relationship
I
there?
always get emotional talking about anything that I do with our royal family, because
Why?
I've always been a huge royalist. I was brought up in a family, in a household that adored and loved everything that came with the royal family. So, you know, over the years, I've done a lot with the Prince of Wales, and I've always been there whenever he's asked me to get involved with things, you know, whether it be veterans, whether it be the London Air Ambulance Service, which we raised funds to get 2 new helicopters for London. You know, these are the things that when I was a kid, I used to see the helicopters going over, and you knew exactly what they were going to do. They were on the way to an emergency. So to be involved in that has always been a yes for me. You know, whenever the Prince of Wales sends me a message and says, I need you to do this or be there, it's always a yes. So when the King asked me to be part of his foundation, I was very honoured, very privileged. I rang my mum straight away and said, you're not going to believe what I've just been asked to do.
What did she say?
My mum always just bursts into tears, in all honesty, because she's so proud of, obviously, what I've done throughout my career, but she's also proud, and she knows my grandparents would have been proud that I've played such an important role within the royal family and the charities that they have. So to be involved in the King's Foundation, you know, our King is an incredible man. He's an incredible man, but he's not just been an incredible man for the last 5-10 years. He's been an incredible man for decades. You know, the work that he has done to empower young people, you know, the grassroots work, you know, all of those, you know, sustainable work, all of these things, all of those lost arts that are lost, and he's trying to bring them back. You know, I visited recently. I visited him, and there's a couple of great pictures that I've had of me laughing with him, and you know, best friends apparently. But you know, we have very similar interests, and I think
is he really into beekeeping too?
Beekeeping, yeah. Who
is that
knew?
a very popular thing to be into in the UK?
Well, I didn't think it would be, but apparently it is. So he's into bees, I'm into bees. He's into the countryside, I'm into the countryside. So. And he's into empowering young people. So, yeah, so I'm very honoured with that role.
They don't really go into the philanthropic part in The Crown. So I think many people don't know.
Yeah,
It's a big part of the monarchy.
I think, you know, we all watched The Crown. We all learnt a lot from The Crown. You know, Is
it accurate?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
You know the monarchy.
Yeah.
Anyway... So what's next on the philanthropic front? I mean, it sounds like you have your hands full on UNICEF, the King's Foundation. Is there anything else you'd like to do to make a difference?
To be honest, we want to just continue to empower young people. I think, you know, it's a silly thing to say and an obvious thing to say, but they are our future. And we need to continue to empower, you know, especially young girls, to live to their full potential. And when you give children the tools, when you give them the opportunities, they respond.
What about empowering your young people? You're a family guy, 4 kids, they're all very famous. They didn't grow up the way you grew up.
No.
And they didn't grow up, certainly, as you mentioned, the way some of these kids around the world. So how do you instill the kind of values that you're talking about in your kids?
I think by giving them the values that we had growing up. You know, mine and Victoria's children have grown up totally different to how we grew up, but we instilled from a very young age the right values. You know, my sons, you'll never see my sons walk into a room and not let a lady go through the door first, or shake people's hand,
because
or
that's what you did.
Be engaged. That's what I did. So, you know, whether you think your children are watching or listening, they are most of the time. And luckily for me, you know, my children have noticed, you know, when my wife leaves the table, I stand up. It's old traditions like that I have tried to pass on to my children, and thankfully, you know, they've turned out great. And me and Victoria are very proud of our children, you know, not because they have their own dreams and ambitions and they're working and they're doing exactly what they want to do, but more because of the values that they have. And let's hope they continue.
You stand up every time she leaves the table?
Yeah.
I can't imagine my husband doing that.
I do get strange looks at times from people. They're like, why are you standing?
That's old school.
It is old school, but you know what? It's how I was brought up. And I've tried to pass it on to my kids, and my kids do it. They don't always do it, but they know that's what Dad does, so...
We watched in the Netflix movie and learned a lot about you. I think you've really opened up, and your relationship and your marriage. And I know Victoria's doing a Netflix movie of her own.
She is.
Why did you decide now is the time to let people in?
Well, it took me actually 10 years to do my documentary because I never really felt that I was ready to look back at my career at that point. When I finished, when I retired, I believed that there was more I wanted to do. So it took me a while to agree to it, and then it came round to the 10-year anniversary of me retiring. I thought maybe this is the right time to do it. So then we looked for the right director. We found Fisher Stevens. Then we looked to have the right partner with Netflix. And then it was all about Fisher making me as uncomfortable as possible to deliver what he delivered. And he did that. Every time I sat down with him, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't want to be there. I didn't really want to talk about things, because I'd never talked about those things before. You know, I'd put them away in a box, I'd locked it up and thought, I'm never going to have to talk about it. But it was good for me. You know, I hold a lot of things in, and it was good for me to actually sit down and talk about these things. So you know, I said to Victoria, I'm only going to do this once, and I'm going to do it right. And it turned out great, you know, to know that it was so popular around the world and people got to learn a different thing about me. You know, that made me very proud of the show that we made. So then leading on to Victoria's, that actually it was quite hard to get her to agree to it, and I was the only one that was going to make that happen. So
why? She didn't want to do it?
She did, well, no. She didn't. Well, purely because, you know, I wanted to do it and showcase what she's all about. You know, people see her as the designer, the creator of, obviously, a beauty brand, the mother, the wife, the Spice Girl.
I was going to say, posh, first and foremost.
But I wanted to highlight how hard she works. You know, this is a woman, I've never met a harder working woman, apart from you. I've never met a harder working woman than my wife. And I wanted to show that. I wanted to show everything that goes into her design, everything that goes into her brand, what she does outside it, all the decisions that she makes. And that's the only way of doing it. So, again, we're doing it with Netflix, we're doing it with our production company. And so far, I think it's going great. And it's just going to highlight how hard she works and the things that she does. And I think people are going to be quite surprised how she juggles things, because, you know, she's a multitasker, and that's one thing that I don't think I am.
How did your kids react to the documentary?
Well, well, none of us had seen it until the premiere. Hmm. So because I made that conscious decision to give that power to Fisher Stevens, the director, and Netflix and my team. You know, my team had seen clips, but, you know, the edit, I wanted them to have full control, because I think that was important, and it came out in it. So we sat there at the premiere, and I could see one of my sons getting quite emotional, Brooklyn, because he lived through that whole time. You know, he's 25 years old, so he'd lived through every moment of my career and, you know, mine and Victoria's relationship. Then you had Romeo, that was 19 years old, no, that was 20 years old at the time, and I could see him, and he said, Dad, you and Mum worked really hard to get where you are. Then Cruz, my youngest boy, turned around to me and he said, Dad, you were really good at football. That was his reaction. I was like, yeah, well, Dad used to do that. Sorry. And Harper was just, I mean, Harper sat there, and she was probably the one, as well as Brooklyn, that I was probably most worried about watching it, because he'd lived through the whole thing. And, you know, there's some moments where you see him crying in the car because of the amount of people around the car and the paparazzi. So I was worried on that side for him. But then I was also worried for Harper, because, you know, it's the first time that she'd seen all of that. So, you know, but they loved it. And the moment at the end where people all talk about, you know, the moment where Mum and Dad are dancing in the tent and embarrassing them, you know, that was a moment where I look back and it just naturally happened. You know, we'd been in the tent.
That dancing went viral.
It went viral, I know. And it was, you know, that was one of the most rewarding moments for me. Seeing, you know, people in their kitchens doing the same. You know, seeing them do it with their children or their parents or their animals. You know, all of those things happen through that moment. And, yeah, and that was just a natural moment that actually happens most weekends. You know, Mum and Dad always embarrass the kids at the end of the night.
You guys dance most weekends?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, after a couple of
Couple
drinks.
goals.
Couple of drinks.
After a couple drinks. I think what resonated with people is how authentic you were and how much you opened up. And speaking of, I do want to talk about David Beckham, the businessman, because you've been very successful. I mentioned the partnership with Authentic Brands. So they own a majority of your brands, all the deals you do, the endorsements and the business. How's that going?
You know, it's going incredibly well. You know, I'm very lucky to have the business that I've had, but I think I recognised very early on in my career that I wanted to have a business outside of my career when I finish. So I built the business up to a certain point to do that. And when I built the business up to a certain point, I knew that then I wanted to scale it. But I knew I wanted to scale it with the right people. I didn't just want to hand, you know, a certain amount of my brand over to someone to let them do whatever they wanted with it. So, you know, I've known Jamie Salter for over a decade. And I know his values. I know his family values. I know him as a businessman. I know how hard he works. And I knew that when I met Jamie, at that point, it wasn't the right time to go into business. I didn't feel my business was in the right position to actually, you know, take it to another level. I knew that I had to build it a bit more over the time. But I also watched what Jamie was doing with Authentic over the last 10 years. You know, he's built this incredibly successful brand for 15 years now. And I knew eventually that was the man that I wanted to be in partnership with and business with. So, you know, over that time, you know, I was watching what Jamie was doing. I was watching how hard he was working and the scale he was going to. And then when it came to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to scale my business. I'm ready to take it to the next level. Me and Jamie had a conversation, and that conversation probably lasted 5 minutes. And we knew that we wanted to be in business together. You know, I know Jamie as the businessman, and I love him as the businessman, but what I love him is for his values. What I love him for is his family values. All 4 of his boys are in the business. All 4 boys have the values that he has. His wife runs the show, of course.
As she should.
As she should. But Jamie is an incredible partner to be in business with. And like I said, you know, I wanted to take my business to the next level. And, you know, the scale that he has done to Authentic is what I wanted to do with my business. And that's, you know, being a shareholder of Authentic and being a partner with Jamie, you know, it's something that I'm very excited about the future.
It's been a good place to be.
It's been a good place.
One of your best business decisions, certainly to Americans, has been Inter Miami. You have an ownership stake, and you somehow convinced Messi to come play in the United States.
Yeah.
What was the vision or the inspiration behind all that?
I always wanted to give back to the game. You know, my dream was always to give back to football, to soccer. And, you know, punditry or management was something that I never saw myself going into. You know, my dream was always to own a team. I always wanted to own a team. So when I moved to America, you know, I had the opportunity to put in one of my contracts, or the contract, that at the end of my time there, I could own a franchise and I could pick the city where it was going to be. And I knew from day one that I wanted Miami. I knew that that was the place where I wanted to be, and a lot of people said to me, it's a tough sporting city, do you really want to go there? And I was like, it's exactly where I want to be.
Why?
Because it was a challenge. And I would say it's been the hardest challenge, actually, in my career and in my business, but the most rewarding. It's the most rewarding for many reasons, you know, to see the team grow, to see the franchise grow, to see the club grow, and to see what we have now. You know, we're building a new parcel. We have a new parcel of land, 32-acre parcel of land in Miami, where we're building the new stadium, which Miami Freedom Park, which we're very excited about. There'll be retail space, there'll be parks there, and obviously the stadium will be there. So we're very excited about that. But you know, when I moved to America, yes, I wanted to lift the game. Yes, I wanted to be part of, you know, making soccer as popular as it is everywhere else around the world. But I wanted to win. I wanted to win on the field, first off. You know, I had a 6-year contract there. And yes, I wanted to build the game, but more importantly to me, I wanted to win championships. And luckily, in the end, I won 2 championships in America. But now, being the owner of a club that has the greatest player to have ever played the game, you know, that's down to people's opinion, but in my opinion, he's the greatest person to have played
It's not that controversial.
the game. Not anymore.
No.
So
You think MLS can be as popular as
I do.
Europe?
I've always believed in the potential. You know, America is America. Simple as that. It's a powerful country. It's one of the biggest and greatest opportunities of countries. And you believe that. When I moved to America, it's the land of opportunity. I knew that I wanted to live in America at one point and create a business. And to create a business that we've done, and I now sit back in my chair in Miami, in that stadium, and Leo walks onto that pitch, and I'm like, I'm quite proud of that.
I bet. I do want to open it up to questions in the audience. Sure.
Sure. I don't know if I can Nick, you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first, I must tell that Diego Simeone was not the right fit, in my opinion. But I'm grateful because of that, because I can see such an inspiration.
Oh, there's a
resilience.
microphone for you.
I can see such an inspiration and resilience behind that. I'm Chuy, I'm a YGL from Monterrey, Mexico, and I have 3 kids, 2 daughters, a gymnast and a dancer, and a son, a 16-year-old soccer player in Mexico's main league. What would be your advice for my son and the kids alike that don't have the opportunity to think of business that early, to think of philanthropy that early, and to experience humanitarian needs as you did, so that they can aim beyond national teams or beyond, for example, for a Mexican player, beyond playing in Europe? How can they see bigger? How can they dream bigger?
Well, it is all about their dreams. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we can always give our children advice, we can always guide them, but then part of that has to be down to them. You know, part of them, you know, you talk about your children doing what they love. That's the most important thing, to do something that you love. You know, I love to work. I love to be in business. I love to be a footballer. You know, I'm very lucky. You know, I am a person that, you know, my parents gave me the support that I needed, but then that made me want to give them back something. You know, when they gave me so much. You know, I grew up in a working class, you know, household. You know, my mum and dad worked hard till from 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night. So they gave me that work ethic. So that's what we can do. We can give our children the opportunity to dream, to help other people, to be kind, because we need more kindness in the world. And then that leads to other things.
Thank you, David. Such a privilege. And this is for my son, Gabo. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do one more. Sure, in the back, right behind.
Hi, David. I have a goddaughter. She's 10 years old, and she's half Thai, half British. She just suffered diabetes type 1. Can you give some word to her, like, and inspire her a little bit?
Well, continue to be healthy. Continue to look after yourself. Continue to dream, because we all want that for children around the world. You know, all children, I've been lucky to sit with children and listen to their hopes, listen to their dreams, and we have to be there for them. We have to look after them.
You had children. You started very young.
We did. You know, Victoria was 24 and I was 23 when we had Brooklyn. And when we got married, you know, this July we would have been together for 28 years, married for 26 years. I turned 50 in May, so it's quite a big year.
Is that why you're in the supplement business now?
Well, you know what? We're very strategic in the businesses that we go into. So supplements definitely are needed. And good supplements, which I don't know whether any of you know about IM8, but you should get IM8 because it's got 92 ingredients. I feel like I'm selling something now.
Well,
but
you are.
I am, yeah. Yeah.
So that's your secret, IM8?
That's my secret, IM8.
How do you know what to say yes to and what to say no to? I'm sure businesses come to you all the time.
I'm very lucky to have good people around me. I'm very lucky to have good opportunities. But in all honesty, I go with my gut. You know, I look at the opportunities that are brought to me, and I always look at them and I sit back and look at them and think, can I work with these people? Can I work with these people for a long time? Do I want to be the face or do I want to be the founder? You know, I enjoy both. Like I said a minute ago, I like to work. You know, I think that's why me and Jamie are best friends and have the same values and interests, because we both like to work. So that's the thing that I always go with. I always go with my gut. Is there an authenticity? Because, you know, my fans, the people around me, people that look at what I do, it has to be authentic because they see through that. So everything that I do has to have some kind of connection.
You're clearly very inspirational. I wonder, though, David, who inspires you?
My children, my wife, children that I've met throughout the world, that I've worked with, that I've helped, that UNICEF have helped. You know, every time that I go on one of these trips, every time that I do something for UNICEF, that inspires me. But it's my children and it's my wife that motivates me. Simple as that. You know, like I said, my wife is hardworking, but the reason I continue to work as hard as I do is for my children. And I'm not talking about for their futures, but I want to set the right example. You know, when I retired 12, 13 years ago now from playing, I could have just sat back and enjoyed the moment. But when I grew up at Manchester United, you know, I had one of the biggest and best business leaders inspire me and teach me, Sir Alex Ferguson. And every time that we do something in business, every time that we have some success, yeah, of course we enjoy it, we celebrate it, but the next moment we're on to the next thing. And that was exactly what Sir Alex Ferguson taught me. He taught us, when we won the treble in 1999, we broke all records. It had never been done before. We won the Champions League, we won the FA Cup, and we won the Premier League. It had never been done before. The next morning, the boss was said, okay, I'm glad you enjoyed that last night, but today we go again. And next year we do the same. And that's what I always had installed into me.
Well, David, thank you very much for giving all of us a snapshot into how you think and how you operate. It really was a treat, so thank you.
Thank you very much.